Welcome. Tonight, we delve deep into the shadows, exploring tales that linger just beyond the edge of our understanding. These are not just stories. They are echoes of fear, whispers from the darkness that surrounds us, waiting for a moment of weakness to make themselves known. The accounts you are about to hear have been gathered from the unseen archives, places where the inexplicable is documented and the terrifying is given a voice. Prepare yourself, for we are about to embark on a journey into the heart of the unknown, a place where the line between reality and nightmare is terrifyingly thin. Before we proceed, a word of caution is necessary. The stories curated for you this evening are not for the faint of heart. They are designed to crawl under your skin, to make you question the silence in your own home, to see phantoms in the corner of your eye. I urge you to ensure your doors are locked and your lights are on. What you are about to witness may leave a lasting impression, a cold spot in your memory that will resurface when you are most vulnerable, when you are alone in the dark, wondering what that sound was. To enhance this unsettling experience, I've paired these narratives with a dark and haunting score. Let the music guide you deeper into the dread. Let it become the soundtrack to your own rising fear. It is an integral part of this journey, a constant reminder of the encroaching darkness that each story represents. It's designed to amplify the suspense, to make every creak of a floorboard, every whisper on the wind, feel as though it's happening right beside you. Listen closely, not just to my voice, but to the atmosphere we are building together. So take a deep breath. Settle in, if you can. The archives are open, and the first file is ready to be examined. These are the tales that people try to forget, the experiences they wish they could unlive. But tonight, we will give them our full attention. We will listen to the voices of those who have stared into the abyss and have come back to warn us of what stares back. Turn down the lights, turn up the volume, and let's begin our descent into the terrifying. Liam and his wife, Sarah, thought they'd found their forever home, a charming two-story house in a quiet suburb, complete with a white picket fence and sprawling oak tree. The price was almost too good to be true, but they dismissed it as luck. The first weeks were filled with unpacking and hope, but soon, oddities crept in. Doors closed on their own, keys moved, and the house's creaks at night felt more like footsteps. The attic, untouched and looming above, drew Liam's gaze. One night he heard a slow, deliberate dragging sound overhead, too rhythmic to be an animal. Investigating, he found the attic thick with undisturbed dust, no tracks, no sign of life. Yet the dragging sounds persisted, joined by soft, measured footsteps. Then a trail appeared in the dust, ending in two oval-shaped indentations, silent, waiting. One night, the attic hatch lowered by itself. From the darkness, a faceless, skeletal figure emerged, long limbs unfolding, the shadow that had been living above their heads. Our second story comes from a truck driver named Al, a man who had spent the better part of 30 years crisscrossing the country. He had seen it all, or so he thought. He knew the highways like the back of his hand, every curve, every lonely stretch of asphalt. He preferred driving at night, finding a strange comfort in the solitude and the hypnotic rhythm of the road unfolding before him. The world seemed simpler at 2 a.m., just him, his rig, and the endless ribbon of highway lights. But one night, on a desolate stretch of Route 66 in Arizona, that comfort would be shattered forever. The night was unusually dark, with a new moon hiding the landscape in an inky blackness. Al was pushing through a long haul, trying to make it to Flagstaff by dawn. The only light for miles came from his headlights, cutting a tunnel through the oppressive dark. The air was still and heavy, the kind of night where sound seems to travel for miles. He had the radio on low, a country station crackling in and out of reception, his only companion in the vast, empty desert. He was tired, his eyes gritty from lack of sleep, but he was a professional, used to pushing the limits of his endurance. It was on a particularly straight and empty stretch of road that he saw her, a lone figure standing on the shoulder, thumb outstretched. This was unusual. It was the middle of nowhere, miles from the nearest town, and it was freezing cold. His first instinct, born of years of caution, was to keep driving. Picking up hitchhikers was a risk he rarely took, but there was something about her that made him hesitate. She looked young and desperate, her thin frame silhouetted against the stark desert landscape. She wore a simple, light-colored dress, completely inadequate for the cold night air. He slowed his rig, the hiss of the air brakes cutting through the silence. As he pulled over, his headlights illuminated her fully. She was a young woman, probably in her early 20s, with long dark hair and startlingly pale skin. She had a kind, almost ethereal face, but her eyes held a deep, profound sadness that struck him to his core. He rolled down the passenger window, the cold desert air rushing into his warm cab. He leaned over and asked if she needed a ride, his voice rough from hours of silence. She just nodded, a small, grateful smile gracing her lips. She climbed into the cab without a word, pulling the door shut with a quiet click. She settled into the passenger seat, folding her hands in her lap and staring straight ahead at the road. Al felt a strange chill that had nothing to do with the open window. The cab, which had been warm and stuffy moments before, now felt cold, as if she had brought the frigid night air in with her. He tried to make small talk, to break the heavy silence that had fallen between them. He asked her where she was headed. "Just up the road a ways," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rumble of the engine. It was a soft, melodic voice, but it carried an undertone of sorrow that was deeply unsettling. He asked her name, but she just shook her head slightly, keeping her gaze fixed on the unfolding highway. Al, not wanting to press her, fell silent. He assumed she had been in some kind of trouble, perhaps a fight with a boyfriend or a broken-down car he hadn't seen. He decided to just give her a ride to the next town and not ask any more questions. They drove in silence for what felt like an eternity. Al kept glancing over at her. She never moved. She just sat there, perfectly still, a silent, pale statue in his passenger seat. He noticed she wasn't shivering, despite wearing only the thin dress. In fact, she seemed completely unaffected by the cold that was now making him want to turn the heater up. The silence grew more and more uncomfortable, filled with a tension he couldn't understand. The crackle of the radio seemed unnaturally loud, an unwelcome intrusion into the strange bubble of quiet she had created. He tried one more time. "It's a cold night to be out here all alone," he said, his voice sounding forced. "Are you sure you're all right?" For the first time, she turned her head and looked at him. Her eyes, dark and deep, seemed to hold a century of pain. She gave him another one of those small, sad smiles. "I'm not alone anymore," she said softly before turning her gaze back to the road. Her words hung in the air, and a genuine primal fear began to prickle at the back of Al's neck. Something was very, very wrong. Al drove on, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. The atmosphere in the cab had become thick and suffocating. Every instinct was screaming at him to pull over and tell the girl to get out, but he was also terrified of what might happen if he did. He felt trapped, a prisoner in his own truck. The lights of a small, sleepy town finally appeared on the horizon, a welcome beacon in the oppressive darkness. It was a place called Silver Creek, little more than a gas station, a diner, and a few houses. As they approached the town limits, the girl spoke again, her whisper cutting through the engine's drone. "This is my stop," she said, pointing a pale, slender finger towards a small white house with a porch light on, set back from the main road. "You can let me out right here." Al felt a wave of relief so powerful it almost made him dizzy. He slowed the rig and pulled over to the side of the road, the truck's brakes hissing in the quiet street. He turned to her, ready to wish her well and get back on his way as fast as possible. He planned to tell her to be more careful, to not accept rides from strangers. He wanted to offer her some money for a hot meal. He turned his head from the road to the passenger seat, his mouth already forming the words. But the seat was empty. She was gone. Al blinked, his mind refusing to process what his eyes were seeing. It was impossible. He hadn't heard the door open or close. He hadn't felt the truck rock as she got out. She had been there 1 second and the next she was simply gone. He scrambled out of the cab, his heart hammering against his ribs. He ran around to the passenger side. The door was closed, securely latched. He looked up and down the empty street. There was no one. The only sound was the idling of his engine and the frantic pounding of his own blood in his ears. He stared at the white house she had pointed to, its porch light casting a lonely yellow glow. Had he imagined the whole thing? Was he so tired that he had hallucinated a passenger? But the cold in the cab was real. The lingering feeling of dread was real. She had been there. Al stood by his truck for a long time, trying to make sense of the impossible. He was a rational man, not given to flights of fancy or ghost stories. But there was no rational explanation for what had just happened, driven by... For our final story, we journey into the Whispering Woods, a forest shrouded in legend and fear. Leo, an experienced hiker, dismissed the tales of disembodied whispers and moving shadows as mere campfire stories. One autumn afternoon, he set out on a little-known trail, seeking solitude and challenge. As he ventured deeper, the familiar sounds faded, replaced by an unnatural silence. The deeper he walked, the more he felt watched, an intruder in a place not meant for him. Then, a faint whisper drifted from the trees. Leo froze, heart pounding, trying to rationalize the sound, but the air was perfectly still. The whispers grew, swirling around him, impossible to escape. Panic set in as shadowy figures appeared at the edge of his flashlight's beam, tall, featureless, and watching. Overcome by terror, Leo ran blindly through the darkness, the whispers and figures haunting his every step. He finally burst onto a dirt road, the whispers vanishing as he crossed the threshold. Leo never returned to the Whispering Woods. The memory of those silent watching figures would haunt him forever, a chilling reminder that some places are best left undisturbed. And with that final chilling account, we draw our journey into the darkness to a close. The tales you've heard tonight, from the shadowed corners of an attic to the desolate stretch of a lonely highway, and into the very heart of a whispering forest, remind us that the world is filled with mysteries that defy explanation. They remind us that fear can be found in the most unexpected of places, and that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we cannot see. The line between our reality and a much darker one can be terrifyingly thin, and tonight we've peered through the cracks. So, as you prepare to turn off the lights and settle in for the night, perhaps take a moment to glance under your bed, or to check the lock on your closet door. You never know what might be lurking in the shadows, waiting for the world to fall silent. The stories we've shared are a testament to the unsettling experiences that ordinary people have faced, and it makes one wonder how many other such tales remain untold, locked away in the unseen archives of personal memory. Perhaps you have a story of your own that sends a shiver down your spine. If you have ever encountered something you can't explain, something that has left you questioning the nature of reality, we invite you to share your own scary stories in the comments below. Reading through the experiences of others is a chilling reminder that we are not alone in our fears. Your story could be the one that keeps someone else awake tonight, just as these tales have hopefully done for you. We are a community of those who are drawn to the darkness, who find a strange comfort in the shared experience of fear. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the terrifying and the unexplained. We hope these stories have left you with a lasting sense of dread. If you enjoyed these dark tales and want to hear more, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss our next descent into the abyss. Until next time, try to get some sleep, if you can.